Hello, my name is Alex, and I wrote a short story that I'm gonna, cover here like an audiobook, and you can put it on in the background or something like that if you want. Warning, I have trouble pronouncing the letter R, so, this might be a bit scuffed. This story is called 5 Hours, and I will begin on hour 1. I mean, the damage isn't even, that bad. The high-pitched voice of my companion sounded out behind me through the speaker affixed to his astronaut helmet. My eyes scanned over the interior of the lunar module, battered to a shell of its former self. Control panels with red beeping lights covered the cramped walls. Metal sheets from the ceiling now scattered across the floor. The telescope up had been completely sheared off and was God knows where, with shards of broken glass everywhere you stepped. I don't know if I'd say that, I mumbled, kneeling as I pulled off a sheet from under the main control unit, but it could be worse. The trip to Mars had been in planning for the last decade, starting in 2025. When they proposed the idea to me, the motive behind the entire thing was laid out plainly. Retrieve samples from rocks on Mars and bring them home, alongside tests on the oxygen of the celestial body. The idea of figuring out how to live on another planet always seemed like a stretch for me. It was this cosmic divine gift that our planet supported life in the first place, no? Wesley Watson, though. The module had shrunken due to all the safety adjustments needed for the planet, only allowing room for 2 astronauts. This billionaire tech mogul was selected as the other. His company's monetary and scientific contributions to the project had proven his worth and needed capability aboard the spacecraft. At least, that's the answer I was given. Damn it, I muttered, scanning over the damage. Watson, try the communications again. A few moments passed of the clicking of buttons. Nothing. Shit. Okay, we'll manage that. You continue chugging away there. I'll take another go around at the oxygen. This is fine. This could be so much worse. I glanced at him with a frown. Conserve your oxygen, keep your breathing steady, and try not to raise your voice. We only have around 5 hours, and we don't know how long this system will take to fix. You got an estimate? Soon, probably, he assured me, though his voice wavered. Have confidence in him, I keep needing to remind myself. And yet, every time I tried to get a look at what he was doing, he'd wave me away. I hadn't even gotten around to the oxygen. Wesley's company had updated the electrolysis system used on the ISS to allow for such a long mission to Mars, though the lunar module itself didn't have that big of a supply. The needed room for the system in the first place initiated the shrinking of space, although we were promised we'd be able to find water to refill the systems near where we would land. Considering we crashed a whole island of Manhattan away from our designated target, that was no longer on the table. It wasn't easy to do work under the main unit with the thick, clumsy fingers of the astronaut suit. It's something you suddenly had to get used to, but at this point it almost came like second nature to me. I pushed loose mechanics back into their proper place and worked on whatever I could, but beyond that focused on seeing what was the most damaged, what had the chance to be fixable. It was comforting, at least, to have some semblance of progress. We might need to do a reset of some systems, I spoke up, at least for the communications. They don't seem to be too damaged, but they're not reaching Space Command. If we try to push them, we might just cause something to overload. Same over here, Wesley said. We need to repair it after, but right now there's way too high a risk of breaking it even worse if I touch it. If either of us touch it, and it looks really damaged. But it's fine. We'll manage to fix it and... Calm down, I said, glancing towards the man as he ducked out from the other side of the cramped space. I'll go about the reset. Should take... maybe even an hour, with how busted up the module is. Our last words to space control before we hit the ground were exactly that. We're going down too fast. Something wrong with the weight of the module, or a miscalculation with the gravity, or, well, any number of things. Looking into that wasn't at the top of our priorities. All that mattered right now was survival. With one final pull of a lever, many of the beeping red lights shut off. With a sigh, I stepped out of the lunar module, out into the rocky red landscape of Mars. Hills and mountains stretched off into the distance, the sky stained a hazy orange. Even through my suit, I could feel the dryness of the planet, tiny rocks crushed into powder beneath my boots. The ground appeared sandy, shifting with every footstep as I looked back at the spacecraft. It was tilted to the side with parachutes collapsed next to it, rocks thrown up from where it had rocketed into the surface of Mars. Well, lucky to be only a bit bruised up. Our suits held up well, I said to Wesley as he stepped out, jumping high towards me. Right. The gravity here was lighter than Earth's, significantly. It's something that had somehow slipped my mind through all the commotion, even though the effects it had on movement were ever present. The tests, the science, figuring out the details of this planet, it would all have to wait. That doesn't mean I still shouldn't enjoy my time here. I might not have long. I'm gonna sit. My eyes trail towards some rocks, around 20 meters away. Not much we can do while the systems reset. Hour 2. How do you think Space Control is handling this? He eventually asked as we stared out over the dunes, tossing a rock back and forth between his hands. Probably freaking out, doing everything they can to get in contact with us, assuming they don't think we're already dead. The public has to have been informed of something by now, I said, rubbing my astronaut boot back and forth in the sand. He leaned forward as if to respond, but it was going to be said died out. I simply averted my gaze to the mountains, trailing over them. It was hard to believe I was truly on another planet. Really, it was only the sky and gravity that would have given it away. Otherwise, you could have fooled me into thinking it was some odd part of Nevada or Arizona. After some time, I found myself asking, what got you into this? Making an engineering company, helping the space program. It was profitable, he admitted, but after a moment of hesitation, I heard a smile crack into his voice. But my dad showed me Star Wars religiously as a kid. The movies, the shows, even got me into some of those comics. I've always wanted to step foot on another planet. Well, does it live up to it? Borrowing the current circumstances. He's quiet for a moment, his head turning to look around the scenery. No, not really. Those circumstances put quite a damper on it. I can still respect the technological achievement, though. Us getting all the way here. I said it would happen, and it did. I guess that's fair. I still think it's a nice view, at least, especially on the way here. Yeah, that wasn't bad. It was a smooth trip, wasn't it? A problem here and there, but that's it. A pause before he let out a laugh. Remember Christmas? They had us get on the communications and do a whole Coca-Cola ad right after we lost half a box of food because of the freezing issue. We had to re-record it dozens of times because we apparently didn't sound happy enough. Of course we didn't. Yeah, I don't even like Coca-Cola that much, I said. For a moment, it seemed like Wesley was going to speak more before he let that conversation trail to an end. The journey through space here had been a long one, 9 months. You'd think you would get close to someone in that time, create a strong bond and all. Surprisingly, or perhaps not, given the man's status, not such a thing happened. Our talks remained surface level, and most of the time we communicated back with friends and family on Earth. I did overhear many of Wesley's interactions, though. Orders about what to do with his companies, deals to make with other businesses, strategies to circumvent and win up competitors. Only a few times did I hear him make calls to what I assume must have been his family. I'm surprised the entire Coca-Cola sponsor wasn't his idea. You have a family back at home? I think they'll be holding up, I asked. He lowered his helmet, bringing a hand up to rest it on. For a few moments he didn't respond, before letting out a sigh and leaning back. My wife's probably losing it, likely got into contact with NASA rather quickly, assuming they didn't call her directly. My boy's probably trying to reassure her, but they should be well off. They're tough. You? You have a family, right? Yeah. I told them, though, if something happens, have some faith in me. Communication issues all the way on Mars isn't unreasonable. Wesley laid completely on his back, staring up at the red haze above us. He seemed to want to say something, but struggled. I gave him time. We're going to die over 100 billion miles away from Earth. We're not even going to get a final message out to our families or other loved ones. We're just... He trailed off. Hey, I turned to him. It won't be for nothing. The freezing problem, the parachutes and weight stuff. It'll be a learning experience. Whether or not we make it, which there's still a decent chance, as long as the oxygen can be restored. which, if the damage is as bad as it looks, he won't be able to. And he said he could fix it. I bet back a nasty comment. If it is, your company and the space program will improve upon the design, make it more durable, maybe. Either way, this voyage has proved that we can make it all the way to Mars and land without dying, at least for a few hours. This is an amazing achievement for humanity, even if a tragic one. Another few years after all the fixes and adjustments, a mission just like this will be even more successful. Sounds like a lot like hoping to me. It is, yes, but that doesn't mean it isn't true. We knew going into this there was a big chance we wouldn't be coming back home. We had been briefed on it a million times. Hope for the best and believe in the science, but don't be surprised if things go bad. Just stay calm, he muttered. Exactly. A breeze rustled past us, sending waves of sand and small rocks rolling across the ground. But I heard its quiet whistle through my suit, as in the far off distance a faint cloud began to emerge over the horizons. A dust storm, maybe? My heart rate began to rocket up before I noticed the direction it was heading in, more to the left, with the wind pushing away from Wesley and I. It shouldn't be a concern for us. The view here isn't really too bad. Hour 3. The system should be reset by now, Wesley mumbled, standing up. The two of us marched back towards the lunar module, ducking into it. Indeed, he was right. The buttons covering the walls and ceiling glowed with a soft yellow hue instead of red, and a few even showed green. I rushed forward, looking over all of them, before my eyes darted back towards the main control unit. Moving forward, I pressed it down on a button, leaning forward. Space Control, it's the Icarus here. Do you copy? Nothing. I tried again. Nothing. Expected, but worth a shot. It's not immediately up, I said, pushing on the tide of unease in my gut. But the fact that some buttons are working shows the energy is at least going to different places now. I'll get to work. Wesley's voice sounded out from behind me, where he checked over the oxygen. A simple acknowledgement. A few minutes would pass. Why hadn't he said anything? The oxygen. How is it? It's looking rough. The system's reset, but the electrical current isn't traveling through the system. We can't split the water into oxygen without that. Wesley spoke, the feet already crawling back into his voice. I moved towards him, crouching by the electrolysis oxygen generator and the open panel by it. For once, he didn't push me away, or make up something to keep me back. Admittedly, also it didn't make a lick of sense to me. Wires and buttons with blobs of warnings that I barely could grasp. My companion was expected to be able to handle it, and repairs to other technological parts of the ship during the course of the journey. My job was more so keeping an eye on the fuel, food, and other general duties. That was another reason Wesley was on the comms so much, checking with Space Control, his company, and their technicians every day on the state of the systems. Right. But you can't fix that, right? In the amount of time we have, I'll try. We slid up again to do our work, him on oxygen and me on communications. Every few minutes I'd call out for a check-in, but every time his responses only sounded less and less confident. He'd suggest ideas on what to do, but it didn't take needing to be a genius to understand the desperation of his attempts. After half an hour, I heard muttering. Moving away from the control unit, I turned to see Wesley kneeling, hands clasped together. God, please, let me fix this. Give me a miracle. This can't be the end of me. Please. Are you praying? I stared at him. I thought you were an atheist. Wesley glared at me, looking like a deer caught in the headlights. Shut it. These systems are broken beyond what could be repaired. The main problem is the electricity isn't moving through. Yes, that doesn't seem unfixable. It's only been half an hour. You claimed you'd be able to resolve all technical problems that came up on the ship, didn't you? It's the reason the safety inspection team let you on rather than KOM more. The original prospect is supposed to be equally as good, if not better than her. I said, unable to keep the ire from weaseling into my voice. Hey, you're not exactly doing a great job with the communication systems either, Wesley said, rising to his feet. So I wouldn't be pestering me here. I don't care what would be doing a better job anyways. The communication systems are close to being up, actually. I hesitated, but chose not to fight him on the Kara claim. He'd refused to give it anyways. Here, let's just focus on that. Maybe Space Control can offer a solution if we get through to them. He grumbled some things under his breath, but followed me back. A silence settled between us as we worked on the communication, which, admittedly, he wasn't much help in for most of. Okay, there. Wesley plugged the cord back in after around another 20-ish minutes had passed. Give it a shot. I pressed down on the button. Space Control, it's the Icarus here. Do you copy? We crashed. We need help with the electrolysis oxygen generator. Do you copy? My gut dropped as no voice came out the other end. I began to lift my finger off the button to try again, when suddenly a voice cut through the air. Space Control, copy. A familiar voice rang out from the control unit. For a brief moment, I was utterly grateful for Wesley's prayers. Icarus, are you... Spitz! Spikes flew out from under the control unit, and the voice of humanity drowned out into a mess of radio static, before going completely quiet. Not that we could even hear it over the yelps that ripped from Wesley and myself's throats. Oh, gods damn it! I quickly moved back from the controls, my voice rising for the first time since we landed as I watched the spikes slowly die down. We're screwed. Wesley leaned against the wall of the lunar module and hung his head, as the chances for outside help dissolved. Hour 4. We didn't talk for around a minute, standing, staring. I felt the fingers of my astronaut suit begin to dig into my palms, as out of the corner of my eye my companion opened and closed his mouth like a gaping fish. I hoped he could feel my glare through the helmet. I hoped he knew how much I blamed him for this. They call you the modern day Prometheus, do they not? The words came from my mouth, each one chosen carefully. That you were giving humanity, what, a new fire? A new tool to redefine our entire species? But you don't have a clue. That's why you're on the comms every second you could. I think you'd be able to fix your own inventions. Throughout it all, I barely raised my voice. I was going to conserve my oxygen, at least. You risked such a mission for what? A joyride through space? The glory of being the first person to step foot on Mars? We're supposed to be in here for the sake of humanity as a whole, Wesley. We're supposed to be diligent. This isn't some movie or just some playground for you. You do understand that, don't you? Hey! Wesley stepped towards me, his voice rising. 1, you're wrong. I'm here for humanity as well. 2, what are you hassling me for? The communications that just exploded everywhere were what you were working on. Yeah, but I tried. You gave up. And no, I don't think I'm wrong. You don't maneuver around and talk about these systems like someone with expertise. An electrical current not traveling? That shouldn't be a give up all hope and pray to God time. Wesley hesitated to respond before snapping. Okay, well, the only reason the space program did as good as it did was because of me and my company. The government's budget cuts would have made a mission by 2035 impossible. It could have been delayed even a whole other decade. They owe me for their success. The electrolysis systems, to be the revolutionized thrusters, those came from me. Oh, did they now? I withheld a scoff. Or did Kara or someone else make them, and you took the credit for it? I wouldn't be too surprised. You have no idea what you're talking about, Wesley said coolly. It was the amount of damage the lunar module took that screwed us over here. The parachutes were made in company by NASA. It was their part in all of this that originally went wrong, not me. I crossed my arms. Sure, they went wrong. But weren't you pushing everywhere online, campaigning to go to Mars by 2035? You wanted this to happen as quickly as possible. Of course, you're not the only one at fault here, but you can admit that you've screwed up. Oh, shut up. He took another step forward. What gives you the right to criticize me? What have you achieved? Stints through space is something people have done before. I'm the one who stretched the limits of what's possible. You have pushed humanity onto Mars. You're just along for the ride. What gives me the right to criticize you? I have a family back home, friends, people who I'll never see again because of you. Lakes, forests, hiking trails through the woods, nice coffee shops, the excitement and buzz every New Year's Eve, making resolutions you know you won't keep. The way you'd forget about holidays until they were weeks away from happening, scrambling to grab a small fake tree or a pumpkin to put somewhere in your house, watching the Super Bowl or the new blockbuster of the summer, late nights walking, getting drenched out in the rain, falling over into mud, awkward conversations with strangers and the panic over breaking a plate, nights where you barely get any sleep, and dozens of pet peeves that tick you off, arguments with your friends over the dumbest of things that somehow get you genuinely riled up. So many things I'd never experience again. I was prepared for that, though. I was not prepared to lose it all to my fellow astronaut. I raised a finger at him. You're not Prometheus. You wanted this launch to happen and flew too close to the damn sun, except it's me you're taking down with you. I have a family too. Wesley raised his voice even louder, the speaker crackling. Friends. That's an odd name for business partners. Before I could blink, the puffy hands of a spacesuit shoved into me, knocking me back into a wall. With the raised gravity, it didn't hurt much, but I still felt my suit crumple, buttons lighting up red underneath me. I didn't even hear what Wesley said as he was shouting, just too busy processing what was happening. I raised my hand with a scowl. Remember your oxygen. You're gonna kill yourself quicker. And what does that matter, huh? We're already dead. We're just prolonging it. Before I could speak anymore, Wesley stomped out of the lunar module, leaving me alone. I slumped down against the wall, cringing as I checked over the damage of the suit. It was minimal, as if that mattered anymore. Hour 5. I lost track of how long I sat in the lunar module, head resting against my knees. Time had to be running up on the 5-hour mark. No? I wasn't sure if I had 40 minutes left or under a dozen. A part of me reasoned there was a timekeeping device somewhere around here, but I didn't find much point in looking for it. Vaguely, I knew that Wesley was sitting outside the ship, by the rock we had rested on earlier. I had checked earlier to make sure that he hadn't just straight up disappeared. That didn't mean I was inclined to talk to him. It's never a question that has crossed my mind. What would I do if I had an hour to live? Of course, that question is starkly different when you're a whole other freaking planet. One thought would turn to me over and over. Walk out as far as I could into the horizon and see as much as Mars as possible. I slowly began to stand up when I caught sight of something out of the corner of my eye. A laminated piece of paper by the corner, near the defunct oxygen generator. Moving over towards it, I'd pick it up, revealing a photo. It was of Wesley, along with his wife and son. He had been panicking this whole time. I guess I would be as distraught as him if I knew the second we crashed that I wouldn't be able to save us and bring us back to our families. Staring down at the photograph, I eventually sighed and turned to the doorway. I marched towards Wesley, tapping him on the shoulder before holding out the image. Oh, thanks. He took it, not meeting my gaze. I stood for a few moments before sitting, a few feet away from him. The dust storm cloud thing from earlier kept rolling across the horizon, though it was becoming harder to see. Pushing you wasn't right of me. The words crawled from his mouth as if they were being forced. But it didn't sound fake, even if admitting it clearly wasn't easy. It wasn't fine. Whatever. Silence settled between us for a few minutes, small pebbles and bits of sand continuing to be pushed around under our boots. You were right, Wesley said eventually. The view isn't bad. Yeah, I was. It's not like the movies, but you don't often see dust clouds like that in the movies. It has to be taller than the Burj Khalifa, easily. Probably. All things considered, we're lucky we didn't land in it. You know they have a restaurant inside it? The Burj Khalifa. My family eats there every trip. I think it's kind of overpriced, though. Well, the fanciest my family usually has is probably Cheesecake Factory. I wouldn't know much. I tilted my head to the side, eyeing my fellow astronaut. I haven't tried it. I guess I never will. The way he said it, maybe that's what got to me. The nonchalant, almost casual hand-waving of the topic. We're going to die. It's just that simple. What fears or nerves that we had over the inevitable. I still believe in it, what I said earlier. That this can be a learning experience for humanity. It sucks, yeah, but I don't think that it's coping as much as you said. Tragedies happen, but they haven't stopped us from pushing past them and doing better next time. Yeah, I guess you're right, he said. The rest of the time passed in silence. At some point I noticed Wesley's movement still, before the man's body began to spasm. He called out for help as he reached towards his helmet. All I could do was sit there and watch, as my warning from hours ago had come true. The need to conserve oxygen. Not that such a thing mattered much anymore. Eventually Wesley collapsed, and I was alone. I don't know how long I sat there, but somehow his death reminded me of something we had overlooked. Standing took a monumental amount of effort. So did the short hike back to the lunar module. Moving through the doorway, I began to look around, opening up the few storage areas that there were, for I found it, tucked in a corner. A pole around my height, with a star-spangled flag wrapped around it. I dragged it back to where Leslie was, unfolding the flag. I raised it above my head before impaling it into the ground, the banner barely waving in the wind. Sitting next to it, I stared off into the distance, nothing to do but wait.